Okay, this is just going to be a quick little guide on how to launch Eplex standard software, create a door, transfer those files to the M unit, and perform a lock programming. For this example, we're going to be doing with an Eplex 2000. So from the software, or from your computer, I should say, you're going to launch the Eplex standard icon. You're going to log in with your username and password. Once the software initiates from the home screen, depending if you've already configured this or not, you may have multiple sites or multiple doors. In my case, I just have the one site under MAS. And if we want to create a door within that group, once the site is selected, you can simply press click the new door icon, or if you can select doors and then click new, they'll both bring you to the same place. You're going to give the door a name. In my case, I'm just going to call it demo. You want to make sure you select the proper lock type depending on the lock model you have. This is important because some of the rules, such as how many users, etc., will vary from lock model to lock model. We're programming an Eplex 2000, so once that is selected, this default of entry lock or cylindrical mortise lock is pretty much standard. We'll click on OK. Once we select that option, the software is going to open up a door configuration file for this new lock that we're calling demo. That's basically going to resemble a Microsoft Excel spreadsheet. There'll be a lot of the default values already set up for unlock time, buzzer volume, and things like that. You can change some of those, but we typically leave it at the default settings. So now within the door file, you'll see that this is, the lock's name is demo. The software is going to default the lock ID to the next available numerical value. And again, we are set programming an Eplex 2000, so that will be established as an Eplex 2000. Here are the standard default settings, again, some of which can be changed. For actually adding users, we would simply enter in user codes, whatever field you want for user names. And user types can be selected as either an access manager or service user. An access user is just a typical standard user that has valid access depending on their PIN. If we select a service user, that is a setting that allows you to create a code that upon entering that code, it will expire within a certain number of hours, which is this column here. But typically most users are just going to be using a standard access user code. So you would go ahead and add in the full list of codes that you want for the lock. Once you are complete, you're simply going to close the document. The software will confirm or ask you to save it, which we're going to say yes, of course. Once that door file is saved and we want to do actual lock programming, for our example, we're using an integrated PC and M unit, meaning the software and the lock programming portion, the M unit, are residing on the same laptop. So you can select this icon here that will update or push information from software to the lock. For our purposes, I mean, you can select all the doors. We're simply going to be programming the demo lock. So if you select this, you want to click on this green button to push the door over to this list of doors to be programmed. Once that is complete, because we are using both services on one computer, we will select transfer to integrated PC M unit. It will automatically launch the M unit portion of the software and tell you the transfer is complete. And then you can see here you would have a list of doors that you're ready to program. They do have a color-coded icon of green or red depending on if they've been programmed yet or not. So if you're doing multiple doors, that sometimes gives you a little bit of a visual guide. One thing that I'm going to want to do for my programming, after you select the door, I'm going to go up here and click this edit option for override criteria. And I want to make sure I enable the ability to override the lock's ID. I'm going to go ahead and click on override lock function too. It's not really applicable to what I'm doing. But the reason I have to override the lock's ID is I'm programming a lock that I have already programmed as a different door number. And in order to reprogram it, you have to authorize the software to do so. So now, once we're actually at the door with our purple IRDA device plugged in and operational, once the lock goes into programming mode, the only other thing we're going to do to the software is click this button to say program. So I have my IRDA device plugged in and ready to go. We're going to go over to the actual lock here. And by entering the lock's master pin, first you press pound, enter the existing master code, pound 900, initiates lock programming mode. Those lights will start to alternate from red to green. Back on the software, I'm going to point this right in between those lights, and back on the software, I'm going to click that button that says program. And depending on how many users or what you're programming, it'll take a few seconds. The lock is programmed. If we were looking back on the screen here, you would see it confirms programming complete. And just a little check, we can check the code, which was one of the valid codes I entered in the lock.